Me. Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to episode 1 of Black Ops 3 Mod Tools. Now, in this video, I'm going to go over basic functions of Radiant, basic functions of Launcher, and how to get your first map started. So, if anything, let's open up Steam. That way we can get the tools, make sure that we have easy access for them. So we're going to open up Steam. We're going to navigate to where the Black Ops 3 is. So once you're in library, go over to games and you're going to see your Black Ops 3. So right click it, go over to properties. Now we're going to go over to local files. Click on that. And right over here on the top, you're going to see browse local files. Click on that bad boy. There you go. Now, from what you're seeing right here, this is the root folder for Black Ops 3. Now, the root folder is where all the files for the game are. So now that we're in the root folder, you can see the path right over here, local disk C, program files x86, Steam, Steam apps, common, Black Ops 3. All right, so first things first, let's go into bin because that's where Launcher and Radiant are. So if I scroll down, you can see right over here that this is the mod launcher. It's the one that looks like a rocket. We're going to highlight it. We're going to right click it and we're going to go to either pin to taskbar or pin to start. Now you can pick whichever one you like. As my preference, I tend to like it on the taskbar. It's easy access. So I'm going to click that. And as you can see, it's right over here on the bottom. That's cool. All right, now I'm going to go over to Radiant, Mod Tools. Highlight that one, right click it, pin to taskbar. Now I'm done. All right, so let's close this out. Don't need you anymore, Steam. All right. All right, so first things first. Let's open up Launcher and let's make our first map. We have to make sure that we set up the files. That way we can start mapping. So we're going to go over here to File. Click on that. You're going to go over to New. Click on that. And we're going to name our map. Now, to start off the name, we have to put ZM, stands for zombies, and put an underscore. And over here, you can name it whatever you want. For this tutorial, I'm just going to call it Ep.1, means episode 1. And we have to pick a template. Now, there's a multiplayer mod template, and there's also a ZM mod level, and also regular mod, but we're going to be picking ZM mod level because we're going to be making a zombies map. So let's click that. Click OK. As you can see, it already generated all the files we need to start off our game. Click OK. All right, cool. So now that we already made the scripts and the files for our game to run, now we're going to highlight the map that we made, ZM underscore episode 1. That's the name of mine. Now I'm going to compile this to make sure that it works. So you're going to make sure whenever you're compiling your game, you have to check compile, you have to check lights, you have to check on link and run. Now this over here, when it says this little drop down box where it says full and ENTs, that's entities. That means let's say if you've already been mapping and you change something in your map. If it's an entity, you could just click entities and compile it and it'll just do the entities. But let's say if you did a brush or you did some scripts or something like that, you would click on full. Me, I always leave it on full just to make sure. Now over here where it says medium, you can click that drop down box. Now these are for the light stages. So low, medium, and high. Me, I always leave it on medium. Whenever you finish your map, just bump it on high and you'll have the best lighting. All right, so let's leave that on medium. Make sure that our map is checked, ZM underscore episode 1. Make sure all 4 of these are checked over here. Leave it on full, leave it on medium, and let's click build. Now we're going to build our map and then be able to go into it and check out what's there and how it came out. There we go. Whenever you're building your map, you want to pay attention to this little area right over here because it's going to let you know if you're getting any errors. if you get an error, always pay attention to it and try to resolve it as soon as possible, because that's going to stop the development of your map and it's going to halt any progress you're making. All right, so whenever I see this little box right here, I already know that the map is ready to load. It says right here, done. And it's showing me the path and the name of my map. So all you have to do is just go over to Steam. There you go. It comes out with that little sound. Make sure I don't kill your ears. Let me fix this for a second. System sound, put that down. Okay. All right, so click OK. It's gonna launch our mod. And let's check out and see how it came out. And then we're gonna start moving on from there. Now, previously, I did make an episode 1, but the audio came out messed up and the video wasn't as good as it could be. So that's why I'm remaking it right now. As you can see, it's booting up into the game. And in a sec, we should be in the game. Here we go. All right, cool. All right, you can use your control. So me, I'm using an Xbox One control. And as you can see, this is our template map. All right, now as you can see with the template map, you get 4 starting perks. You get the Pack-a-Punch. You get the power switch. This is going to activate the perks and the Pack-a-Punch. And we have a gun on the wall and a window that zombies come through. And we also have risers. Now with this template map, it's just a template. It's not really fully functional. So we're going to exit out of this. The map is working fine. And let's start getting into the details. Oops, sorry, zombie. See you later. This sad music. All right, let me get out of Black Ops 3 and let's start mapping. Let me just do this. Get out of there quicker. Okay, cool. All right, so now that we know that the map is fully functional, we're gonna leave it checked. We're gonna right click it and we're gonna go over to open map in Radiant. Or else you can go right up here and it's also the Radiant icon. Or else you can go to the one on the bottom. Let's go to the one on the bottom. All right, now it's loading up Radiant. This is the program you're gonna use to make your zombies map. Just give it a sec. For you guys, it'll be a first time run, so it'll probably take maybe a few seconds to load up. But once it's done, that's what you're gonna be presented with. Now, if I would have right clicked on this and hit open map in Radiant, it would have opened up this map. Now, for me, I went to the regular one on the bottom, so it didn't open up a map. Now you can always go over to file and you can go over to open, or else whenever let's say if you already started making a map, most likely it'll show up under recent files. And as you can see, I have a few maps over here that I've been working on. So there's 2 ways of accessing your map. So let's go to open. And as you can see, it opened up a directory. Now this is in map source under the Black Ops 3 root folder. Now, in order for you to find your map, remember we called it ZM. It's a ZM mod level. So it's going to be under ZM. Double click on that. And as you can see, I have all my maps over here. Now the one we want is the one that says episode 1. That's it right over here. So double click on that. It's going to open up the map. All right, cool. So let me show you the basic functions and what's here right in front of you. This over here is the 2D window. This window, you can zoom in and zoom out. You can hold control and press tab and it'll change the view. Now, right now, this is the front view. You can tell by it saying front right over here. And as you can see, everything's on the side, or at least right in front of you. Hold Control and press Tab. It'll go to a side view. Hold Control and press Tab again, and it'll go to the top view. So there's 3 different views you can use. And you can use the scroll wheel to scroll in and out. Now, this right over here, this blue thing with 2 antennas, that's actually your camera. This is what you're seeing right over here on the camera view. So if I move around, you can see that my camera is also moving and it's roaming around in the world. Now, by default, it doesn't do this. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over the settings and we're going to go over the preferences and you're going to go over the camera and you're going to make sure this part over here is checked. It's going to say update XYZ on drag. Make sure that's checked. Hit apply, hit OK. Now, whenever you move in the 2D in the camera window, you'll see your camera moving around and you'll know where you're at. If you don't do this and you move around in the camera, you have to click on it and it'll update where your position is. Me, I like seeing it moving around. That way I know where I'm at. All right, that's one thing. So this is the 2D window. Now, of course, if you see, I can move them around like that. Now, if you want to, let's say if you want to look around, see how I'm doing it right now. Just click and hold the scroll wheel and left and right, and you can see him turning his head left and right. Now, let's say if we're on the camera view, we can move this over, click right on the black. Now, if you right click and hold it and move your mouse forward, he'll move forward. If you move it back, he'll move back. If you turn left, it'll turn left. Turn right, he'll turn right. Now, let's say if you hold Control and right click, you can move your character up to the top and you can move him down. And same thing, left and right. All right, now let's say if I'm up here and I want to tilt my head down, hold Control and Shift and right click and you can turn your head down and up. And as you can see, he's looking around, getting a good look. All right, cool. Now, let's say if I didn't have all these windows here and you started off like this. Now, these windows, you can move them around wherever you want them. Now, the way to do that is, let's say if I want this camera on this side, you would just click right over here where it says camera, left click and hold it. And wherever it shades in blue, that's where your camera is going to move to. So as you can see, I can move it to different spots, move it over here. Let's say if I want to move it down over here. There it is. Now me, I always prefer mapping with the camera to the right and the 2D window on the left. Now let's say if I want to bring up my textures, press T on the keyboard and it'll bring up your textures window. Now with the textures window, automatically it always starts off on all in views. So these are basically all the textures that this map is using right now. As you can see the script wall, and you can see sky and sun and trigger and volume. This is everything basically that's being used at this current moment. So let's say if I want to look at more, uh, just go over here to this tab right here, go to all, and it'll show you all the textures. Now these are all the textures you can play with. Now they are set by category. So if you go over here to usage and click on that drop down box, you can see that you can select for tools. It'll show you all the tools. You can go over to clip. It'll show you all the clips. Door, not too many doors. Floor, these are all the floor textures. There you go. And so on. Now locale. If you click on locale, it'll say, well, let me stretch this out a little bit more so you guys can get a better look. Just click on the black line. You can drag it over. And locale you see it'll say carrier, core, cube. You know, you can look by specific ones. Same thing with that. Surface type. Now let's say if I want to look for wood or ice or asphalt or ceramic or glass. Click on that. Well, make sure that none of these are on a certain item. Make sure it's on all. That way if you check this one and you put it on a certain one, let's say if I'm looking for brick, it'll show me all the bricks. Now let's say if I want to apply this texture. All you have to do is go to the left side of the shift button, hold it, and left click, and you can select the item. Now I can pick a texture. So let's say if I pick this brick one over here, double click it, and it applied the texture, and hit escape to get out. So as you can see, now I have a brick texture on the floor. Now let's say if I wanted to select just the face and not the whole brush. Now this is called a brush. So hold Control and Shift and left click. And if I move to the bottom, let's see, actually that's covering it. You'll be able to see that it's not the whole item that's being selected. It's just the top face. But let me drag out a brush so you guys can see what I mean. So if you want to drag out a brush, just left click on the 2D window and hit Control and Tab. And let's say if I want to make it bigger, you want to drag it on the outer sides. Never drag it on the inside, because if you drag it on the inside, you're going to just move it. So let's say if I wanted to make it bigger, let me back up. Get rid of this window. All right. So right now, I just made this brush. Now if I want to make it bigger from left to right, you drag it on it, left and right. Just left click and hold it. Let's say if I wanted to make it smaller, I can drop it down. Remember, you hold Control and press Tab, and you can change your view. Make it nice and thin. Now this is a manipulator handle. So let's say if I click and hold this blue handle right here, this blue arrow, I can move it up. I can move it down. Click on this one, I can move it left or right. If I move over to this side, I can move this red one. If you click and hold it in the middle, you can move it in like that. So that's pretty cool. A lot of different ways you can move around in the world. All right, so now that we got that covered, let's say if I have this brush and I want to put it down to the floor. Just drag it down to the bottom. Stretch it out the way you want it. Hit escape and bow. Now it's on the floor. So let's say I want to go from a top view. Remember, hold Control and Tab. Right now I'm in a top view. Now this over here, these little boxes, this is called the grid. Now let's say you want to shrink it down or make it bigger. You go right over here to this grid looking box right here. Click on that. And these are the stages of the grid you can use. Now right now I'm on grid 8, which is number 4. Now when I mean number 4 is if you press 4 on the keyboard, it'll switch to this grid. Now let's say if I press 3, it'll shrink it down. There you go. See, I have less boxes. Now if I press 2, it'll shrink it down even more. Press 1, you can hardly see it, but you have to zoom in to really see them. All right, let me click on 4, so it'll put it back on grid 8, you know, because that's a good grid to map on. That's how I do all my mapping. Now, let's talk about what's here in the world. Now, this over here is the player spawn. This is how you're going to spawn into the game. So you have to put this into the game whenever you're making a map, because that's where you're going to show up. Now, these over here, if I hold shift and left click, you can select them. You can select more than one item, move them up and down, hit escape. Now, these are player spawns. So you're also going to need this in your map to get it started. These over here are script structs. If you press N on the keyboard, it'll bring up the entity info. And this will give you the information about the item, what it is, and what information it has in it. Now, if with this being selected, it's telling me right over here that it's a script struct, and it has a target name of start zone spawners, and it also has another KVP. Now, these are keys and values. This, let's say if I would click on add KVP, let's say if I would add script underscore noteworthy, that's this right over here. This is the key, the property key, and this right here is the value. So dog location is the value. And then you would hit add. Let's say if I put hello. And you see how it shows up right there? So these are the keys and values. This is information or coding that you would put into the game, or at least to certain items. Press N on the keyboard, make sure that disappears. All right, so let's hit escape. Now let's go through basic functions of how to map. So right now I'm gonna select everything and make it disappear. So I'm gonna hit I on the keyboard. This is gonna select everything in the game. Let me back up on the 2D window so you guys can see what I mean. All right, now this is the world. I'm gonna press I on the keyboard. It's gonna select everything. And I'm gonna press H. H stands for hide. So it's gonna hide everything. Press H and bow. Everything's disappeared. Now, let's say if I want to bring it back, because it's not really deleted. Hold Shift and press H, and it'll bring everything back. So let's say if I select an item, let's say if I want to select all of these, just hold left shift and left click. There we go. Now I have all these items selected. You can tell selected because a little arrow pops up. And now I have all of these items selected. Now if I press I to select everything else will be selected except for the items I selected just now. So if I press H, everything else disappeared except for the items that I already highlighted. So that's a good way of keeping what you want to see and getting rid of everything else. So let me press Shift and H, bring everything back. All right, so let's make a blank map. Let's make sure that we get rid of everything that's in here. Because whenever I start mapping, I like mapping from scratch. That way I know what's being put into the game, and you have full control over your map. So I'm gonna press I on the keyboard. There we go. Now I'm gonna delete everything. So I'm gonna hit backspace, and this is gonna delete it all. Click on that and bow. Now I have a brand new map. It just has uh, this image in the background. All right, so let me zoom in on the 2D window. Now I'm gonna drag out a floor. Right now I'm on the top view. So if you want to change your view, remember hold Control and press Tab, and it'll change your view. So we're gonna go from a top view. I'm gonna go right over here to the intersecting white lines, and I'm gonna start dragging out a box right over here. So I'm gonna drag out a box right here. See, it's right in the middle. Now I can move it up. I'm gonna go, you see these big boxes? Right now I'm on grid 4. I mean number 4, which is grid 8. That's what the grid we're on right now. So I'm gonna go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 boxes up from the line, and I'm gonna go 5 out. Now when I say 5, I mean these big boxes, not the little small ones. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 from the white line. And you can make it as big as you want. Just drag it over. Drag it from the outside. Because if you drag it from the inside, you're just gonna move it. So that's what you do when you left click. So let me go 5 down. And here we go. All right, so now it's even. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Whoop. Let's make that 5. I like making my boxes even. All right, so you see this white line? I like making that the starting point for the floor. So there we go. As you can see, I already have a good little canvas. Now let's say you don't want to start off with a texture and you want to start off with a cock texture. Now, a cock texture is a texture that's invisible in game, but at least you can see it while you're mapping. So in order for you to put a cock texture, you have to press T and go to your textures. Now it is under tools. Go to tools, make sure that it's on all. None of these are under anything. Just make sure that they're on all, and it'll show you everything you have at your disposal. So if I scroll down, you can find the cock texture there. Here it is right over here. Now this is invisible in game, but at least you can see it right now. That way, if let's say if you start texturing this, it'll only texture the parts that you're selecting. So let's say I already made that a cock texture. Let's say if I want to just select this top face and not all the others, like the bottom or the sides, hold Control and Shift and left click. And as you can see, it only selected one face of the brush. So now I can add a different texture to it. Say if I add the brick, there you go. And as you can see, the bottom isn't textured, just that face I selected. All right. So let's say if you want to select the whole item, just hold Shift and left click. If you want to do just the face, hold Control and Shift and just click on the face. All right, so let's make a room. Now there's two ways of making a room. Now let me zoom out, go from a front view. Now I can select the brush and drag it up. Now I've learned that 2 boxes up is a good height for a room. Now let's say if I try to go in here, there's nothing because this room isn't hollow. Now there's two ways of making a room. Now we can either go over here to selection while it's selected, go to selection, go to CSG, and go to hollow. Now we can click on that, and as you can see, it made 4 walls, a ceiling, and a floor. Hit escape, and as you can see, we're inside the room now. Now we can start texturing and making different items. Now that's one way of making a room. Let's say if you messed up, you did something you didn't want to do and you want to go back. Just hold Control and press Z, and it'll undo whatever you did. Or else you can just go over here to edit and go to undo side stretch, undo, redo hollow, copy, paste, delete. All right, so let me shrink it back down. There we go. Now there's another way of making a room. Now I'm on the front view, so I can just drag out a brush, a nice little thin brush where the wall is, where the wall will be. And look at it right there. Now let me go from the top view. Now this brush is selected. In order for me to copy this brush, let's say if I want to put it over here on this side, hit spacebar, and open up that window. And just click inside of it. That way I can move it completely. And I'll put it on that side. So now you can see it's moved over. Let's say I could copy it again and drag it in from the middle, or at least the inside of it. Doesn't matter. Now, let's say if I want to rotate this, I can go over here to these over here, where it'll do rotate for me. Or else I can stay on the 2D window and press R. And then I can rotate it like that, just by moving the mouse. There you go. Or like, let's say if I don't want to press R, and you just want to move it really quick, hold Shift and press D, and it'll rotate it for you. Remember, hold Shift and press D. So now I'm gonna put it over here. Let me shrink it down a little bit. There we go. All right, cool. And I think I have more than one brush over here. So hold select, select that one. Hit backspace, it'll delete it. So let me select this item. Hit spacebar, drag it down, align it where you want it, and hit escape. And as you can see, I have a floor and 4 walls. Let's say if I want to make a ceiling, I'm still on a top view. So I can drag out a box right here. just left click and drag away. There you go. Now hold control and press tab. And as you can see, it's filled up the whole thing. I'm gonna just push it up from the bottom. And as you can see, now I have a ceiling. Now let's texture this room. So I'm gonna hit, or remember, you hit T for textures and it'll bring up your textures. If the window's already open, just navigate to the window right there. Now let's say I want a floor texture. So I'm gonna go over to usage, go over to floor, and it's gonna show me all the floor textures. Remember, you could click on whichever one you want. Let's say if I want this checkered one over here. So what I'm gonna do is select the face that I want, or at least the brush. Remember, you can select the brush just by holding shift, left click. There you go. And I could double click this one. Now, you can see that it's looking, there's no texture applied. It's just going right through the floor. Now, the reason it's doing that is because this is a decal. And if you look on the bottom of the texture, it says decal. Now, decals, blends, and transparent, they're not going to work good unless you have another texture already there. So this isn't going to work. So we're going to have to look for one that does not say decal or does not say blend. It could say light. It could basically say everything else, just no decal, no blend, and no transparent. So this floor over here just says light. So I'm going to select it because it didn't disappear. It's just not rendering a texture. Double click on that. And as you can see, I have a texture now on the floor. Let me bump this window down so you guys can see better. There we go. All right, so there's the texture on the floor. Now let's do the walls. Hold control, press shifts just so we could select the face. Move the camera over. Now let's look for interior wall. Over here, interior wall. And here are all the interior wall textures. Let's see. Let's pick out something nice. See, you got a lot of textures to work with. I'm just going to click on this blue one. Hit escape. And as you can see, we added a texture to it. Now, if we step out of the box, you can see that the outer walls are not textured. That's because we just clicked the face. Remember, hold control and shift and left click. Now, for the bottom brush, I didn't do that. So that's why you're seeing the textures on the outside. If you're making a box map and your character's not going to be stepping out of that box, just texture the faces because it'll help with the performance of your map. So I'm going to go over to the cock texture. Now, as you can see, I've already been messing with it. So I want to go back to that texture, but it's not here. So I can go to all in views and it'll show me all the textures I'm using. But it's not going to show me every one of them because it's only showing me interior wall. So go out of that, click on all, and now it's showing me all the textures. I could double click it, and there we go. Now let me hold control and shift, select the floor, put that texture back on. Now if I step out, there's no texture on the outside. All right, so let me show you guys how to cut a hole into the wall. All right, let's say we have this room, and this is our start room, and we want to make another room. Now we could copy this whole room. Press I to select everything, and hit spacebar, and just hold it in the middle, and you can move it over. And we line it up. Now I have two rooms. Hit escape, and there we go. Now I'm in one room, and there's another one on the other side. So hold shift and left click, and let's see where that room is. It's right over here because you can see the camera's facing it. So select that one. We can go right through it. Let's select this side. So now we have both of these faces selected. I'm gonna go from front view. Okay. So now you can see that the brush is selected. Now, in order to cut a hole into this wall, all you have to do is just press X on the keyboard. Once you press X, and you left click on one of the lines, it'll put a dot. There we go. Now let's say if you put another dot across from it, it'll put a line through there. So that's showing you where it's going to cut. Hold shift, press enter, and there you go. It just made you two pieces from that wall now. Now we're going to do it on this side. 1 and 2. Hold shift, press enter, and there you go. Press escape. Now if I select the wall, you can see I have 3 pieces now. So leave the middle piece selected, press backspace, and it deleted it. Now let's select this one and delete that one too. As you can see, now we have a walkway into the next room. So let's select both of these walls. Select this one too. Select that one. Double click on this texture. That way we can get rid of that yellow part in the middle. That way it'll texture the whole thing. Now the ceiling. Hold Control and Shift and left click. Let's look up. Actually right click. Now we're gonna select the ceiling and let's give this a ceiling texture. Just select all those pieces. Press T for texture. There we go. Bring up the textures window. Now let's look for ceiling. Make sure it's on all. Go over to ceiling. There you go. Now these are all the ceiling textures. And I'm going to put this one. Actually, this one looks nicer. Double click on that. Hit escape. And there you have it. Oop, there's actually a hole up there. Let's hit Control and Tab. Let's go from that top view. Let's drag out a brush. There we go. Now let me drag it up. You can also do it on the camera window. And let's texture it. Now let's say if you want to go back to the textures you were using and you don't want to go back to all in use. Just press U on the keyboard and that's for usage. It'll show you all the textures you're using. But make sure it's not on a specific search type. Make sure it's on all. And there are all the textures. Now let's double click on that. And as you can see, the ceiling is perfect. Alright, so now that we know how to cut, let me show you guys a different way of cutting a hole. Let's say if you want to make a window, you can do it the same way. You know, just select the texture. Now, the reason I'm selecting 2 of them is because there's 2 walls back to back. If there was just one, then I wouldn't do this. But let me back out. Press X on the keyboard. Select the line. Put 1 dot. Put 2. Shift Enter. And I'm going to make another slice right here. Shift Enter. One right here. One there. Shift Enter. One there. One there. Shift Enter. Press Escape. Look for where it was at. Hit Backspace. Delete it. Select that one. Hit Backspace. Delete it. As you can see, I made a window. Now there's another way of making a window. Let me go over to this side now. Now I can drag out a brush. As you can see, it's right on the wall. Let's say if you want to make sure that the brush shows up on the part that you want to modify, just select that wall. Like select that wall. And now if I deselect it, and if, where's that wall? Right there. So now I have it selected. If I deselect it and I drag a brush on it now, it'll put the brush right on the wall that I just selected. And I can go over to selection, go over to CSG and hollow. And there you have it. Oop, I did a hollow. Actually, I didn't want to do that because that's for making a box. Let me hit Control and C. And now go back to selection, go back to CSG. And this time I'm going to go to subtract. Click on that. As you can see, if I move these arrows, it made a hole. So you can actually cut out a hole with the brush just by using that tool, subtract. Hit backspace, it'll disappear. And now I have a window. Alright, so what else can I show you guys? There's the edge tool. So let's say I select this brush. Let me go from a front view. And you press E on the keyboard. It'll bring up the verts on the sides. these blue dots. Now you can click on it and move it over. As you can see, it's moving it. There you go. Let's say if you want to give it a certain kind of look or have it shifted, or else if you want to do it like that. There you go. See how I did that? Just hold select the item, and then press E on the keyboard, and then you can modify the parts of it. Hit escape, and there you have it. All right, what else can I show you guys? What else would be useful? Okay, let's go to the entity browser. This is how you're going to start putting items into your game. So press B on the keyboard, and it'll bring up the entity browser. Now, with the entity browser, if you go over to MISC, right there, and you go over to model or prefab, you can add prefabs or you can add models. Now, let's say if I want to drop in a model, just drag it over. Either it could be on the 2D window or the 3D. Me, I like doing it on the 3D, so it'll put it right where I need it. And right now it's showing us models. Now remember, you have to make sure that it's on all, so it'll show you everything that's in the map. And here are all the models. So you can drop items into the game. Just give it a second for it to load up. Let's say if you're looking for something specific, just go over here to the filters. Let's say if I want to add a table, I can type in table, and it'll show me all the tables. Once you drag over the a model and it gives you that cube, that just means you just have to double click on one of these and it'll put it in there. So let's say if I want to put in this table, double click it, and there it is. Now it's in my game and it lined it up with the floor. Now I can use the handle to move it over. See? Hold shift, press D to rotate it. And I can put it wherever I want. Let me go from the top view and move it over here. Hit escape, and there we go. Now you have a table in your game. All right, now let's say if I want to add, let's see, a crate. Type in crate, it'll show you all the crates. And just left click and drag one out. And bow, there's a crate. Now you got a crate in your map. And let's say if you select it, you get his space bar, and you can copy it. And now you got more than one. His space bar, move it up. I can stack it on each other. Now, let's say if you want to change your views. Let me close these out. Now, right now, there's 3 views you can use. There's full light mode, which is pressing F7. As you can see, everything's lit up. That makes it easy for you to see. Now, there's F8 mode, which is for you to compile your lighting. Right now, it's saying we don't have a sun volume, so it's not gonna do any light compiling. Now, let's say let's add a sun. So I'm gonna back out on the 2D window, and I'm gonna press B for browser. It'll bring up the entity browser again. Now I'm gonna go over to volume, and I'm gonna go over to sun, and just drag it over. And as you can see, it put out a little brush that has a sun texture on it. So we're gonna put this over our whole map. There we go. Control tab, and make it bigger. Make sure that it covers out the whole world, at least our world. Make it bigger than that. You can make it as big as you like, because the bigger you make your map, you don't want your map falling out of this zone. All right, cool. So hit escape. Now the sun is wrapped all around our map. Let me back out slowly, and there it is. You can see it. All right, so now we can actually compile lighting under F8. So on the camera view, make sure that you right-click the black area right over here, and make sure you have exposure checked, Because if you don't, it's not going to give you all the options to compile the lighting. So make sure you right click, go to exposure, and it's going to give you this little lightning bolt right over here. Let me close out these windows. All right, so now I can actually build the lighting with the sun here. And let's say if you didn't have the sun and you were putting in regular lights, you would just build those like that also. So click on the lightning bolt. It's going to compile the lighting. And as you can see, it fixed the lighting for us. Now let's say if I want to see how it looks in game, press F9 and it'll go into game view. It says it right over here. Press F9 again. There you go. And put you right back. All right, so that's how it looks in game right now. So let's say if you want to bring back the 2D window, you closed it and you want to bring it back. Just right click on a black area and it'll bring down this little drop down menu. And these are all the items that aren't presentable, or at least items you can bring back. So what you want to look for is XY, top, side, or front. And that's the 2D window. So click on that and you can see it brought back the 2D window. All right, so let's see what else. Let's say you want to add some prefabs. So let's go back to the entity browser, press B on the keyboard. It'll bring up entity browser. Go over to MISC and let's drop in a prefab now. So let me zoom in a little bit and drop a prefab. Now it's opening up a little dialog box. Now go to ZM and over here, ZM Giant, ZM Core. These are going to be your prefabs. So you can add like a zombie window, you can add guns, you can add vending machines, and basically anything you want. So let's back out and let me go to ZM Giant. And as you can see, it has light, has audio. There's a bunch of different prefabs you can add. Some of them have to be scripted or at least given some KVPs. So not all of them are going to work the way you want it to. But this is just the beginning. So I'm just going in baby steps for you guys. If you look at any of my other videos, I have how to make stairs, how to make doors, how to do zones, how to add zombies, how to add dogs, how to add effects. All of that is coming. This is just the beginning. So I'm just giving you guys a quick little breakdown because once we get into the more advanced videos, we're going to start speeding things up. All right, so remember, I'm dropping in a prefab. So let me make sure I delete that one. Let's do it again. Click on that, drop in a prefab, go to ZM because it's zombie mode. Go to ZM Core, and let's say I want to add a power switch. Double click on that, and let's look around where we dropped it. Control and Tab. Oop, it's all the way on the bottom. Let's move that up. And here it is. Now it's a power switch. Now let's put this against the wall. There it is right over here. Hold Shift, press D to rotate it. And let me put it on the wall. There you go. And as you can see, if you hit escape, now we have a power switch. It's that simple. Let's say if this was a zombie window and I wanted to add some barriers or at least some boards. Same thing, prefab. Drop that in. Go to ZM. Go to ZM Core. And let's look for, let's stretch this out. Barricade receiver wood hide pieces. Double click on that. And here's the zombie window. Let's move it over. Now, it's not aligning the way I want it to. Shrink down the grid. You can go over here, shrink it down. It'll give you smaller boxes for you to work with. There you go. Now you see I aligned it a little bit better. Press escape. And as you can see, I have a window right on there. Of course, it's not ideal the way I would want to make a map. But these are just little little breakdowns on how you would do things. So if you guys like this video, hit that like button, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Basically up to about 20 different videos, and it's growing more and more every day. So this is just the intro. If you guys want to get into the nitty gritty stuff, just check out anything else on my channel. Thanks for watching. Peace.